Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. It's time to look at another team or manufacturer that only managed to take part in a single Grand Prix. We've previously looked at small teams of blokes giving it a go, like Francis Derrington and Connu, as well as massive industry names like Bugatti. We have another team who managed to take part in a single Formula 1 Grand Prix for this episode of One Race Wonders, but you should check out the whole playlist. Not only have we looked at teams, but drivers from every era, looking at their single Formula 1 appearance and their lives and careers outside of Formula 1. Some took part in the first ever Formula 1 race at Silverstone and then never raced in Formula 1 again. Others took part in a single Grand Prix as recently as 2020. In episode 55, we are looking at the short-lived effort from the Shannon racing team. So check out the whole One Race Wonders playlist, subscribe right now, and let's jump into the video. This is a story of three Formula 1 manufacturers, one that raced several times, one that raced just for once, and one that never did. Shannon racing cars began life in around 1965. Honestly, it's hard to find an actual start date. Designed by Aidan Jones and Paul Emery, both with previous Formula 1 experience. Aidan Jones was a mechanic for the Thai royal family, working for the immensely talented Prince Bira and his cousin and White Mouse team owner, Prince Chula. Paul Emery is also a Formula 1 one-race wonder in his own right, and we will get to him in a more complete video at some point in the future. He built his own car, the Emeryson, which turned up in Formula 1 a couple of times, first in 1956 and then the name reappeared in 1962. The Shannon racing team was essentially his third bite of the cherry. Emeryson actually managed a total of 4 Grand Prix appearances, once with Paul Emery himself in 1956, twice with Tony September behind the wheel in 1962, and Wolfgang Seidel for Écurie Marsbergen, also in 1962. That's along with Equipe Nationale Belge, also failing to qualify in Emeryson 3 times in 1961. That said, the best result in Emeryson actually managed was 11th at the British Grand Prix of 1962. And that's also the only result, with the rest either being DNFs or not classifieds. Together, Paul Emery and Aidan Jones created the Shannon SH1 with the steel monocoque chassis built by Shannon Racing Cars, and fitted with a Coventry Climax engine. Coventry Climax engines had been around for about a decade in Formula 1. They had been very successful, taking 40 wins in that period, with top drivers such as Stirling Moss, Jack Brabham, Bruce McLaren and Jim McClark amongst the names to win with a Climax engine. But by 1966, these engines were on the way out. The last new engine was made in 1964, and its final Formula 1 appearances would come in 1969, with Canadians Al Pease and John Courts giving it its final run-outs. Even worse, the Coventry Climax engine in the Shannon wasn't even a newer model. It was originally designed for Keft, a small British company that made Formula 3 race cars and a sports car once, and had tried to enter Formula 1 in 1954, but for various reasons the project was canned and the engine sat unused. The entire stock of parts was sold on, and Paul Emery acquired an engine, which he fiddled with and got up to standard for Formula 1 in 1966. The single Keft Formula 1 car survived and has been seen at historic events in the last 20 years. The Shannon SH1 was now built and had an engine and took part in its first test at Brands Hatch with sports car driver and British Formula 4 champion Sid Fox. But when it came time for the Shannon's Formula 1 debut, they decided to put experienced racer Trevor Taylor behind the wheel. Trevor Taylor had a fantastic career in British motorsport, winning the 1958 British Formula 3 Championship and sharing the 1960 Formula Junior Championship with Jim Clark. Formula 1 didn't work out to the same degree. A podium in a Lotus in 1962 and a couple of points finishes, before moving on to the British Racing Partnership in 1964, scoring 1 point. He had taken wins and podiums for Lotus in non-championship races between 1961 and 1963, but he scored just 8 points in Formula 1 proper. The race in the Shannon would be his 27th and final start in Formula 1. Despite this being towards the end of the Climax engine's time in Formula 1, there were still a few on the grid and some in the hands of top teams. Jim Clark's Lotus had a Climax engine, as did the Eagle of Dan Gurney. Of the 6 Climax-powered cars, the Shannon was the slowest, and Trevor Taylor qualified 18th of 20, only beating the Cooper Ferrari of Chris Lawrence and the BRM-powered Lotus of Peter Arundel. The race itself never really happened for Shannon. A fuel leak on lap 1 ended their race before it really started. Shannon racing cars are more of a one-lap wonder than a one-race wonder. Plans were attempted for the Italian Grand Prix later in the year, and major sponsorship money from a petrol company was supposed to be on the way, but this never happened, and the Shannon never appeared at Monza, nor in Formula 1 ever again. The car would be repurposed into a Formula 3 car and in the hands of Keith Jupp and John Wilson would keep racing competitively until the end of 1969, making its final racing appearance at Thruxton. During its entire lifespan between 1966 and 1969, the Shannon made a minimum of 8 appearances and no more than 12 in total. The car is apparently in the hands of a collector in Austria. Burkhard List has a collection of Emerysons, amongst other interesting race and road cars, and as far as I can find out, has the Shannon SH1 amongst his collection. So that is the very short-lived story of the Shannon Racing Cars team, and the brief Formula 1 history of the Shannon SH1, a Formula 1 one-race wonder that barely made it a lap in Formula 1. It's interesting when these small teams kind of intersect with other small teams. The failed F1 efforts of Keft and Paul Emery's previous efforts all led up to that single lap that the Shannon SH1 managed at Brands Hatch. Make sure you check out the One Race Wonder playlist and all 55 episodes. Subscribe for more motorsport as the racing season is now properly underway. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching and have a good one.